Trees are the oldest, largest, and tallest living things on Earth. They are powerful and enduring symbols of life. What makes trees different than other plants is their trunk. A single woody trunk rises above the ground and divides into a series of branches. Trees evolved because some plants needed trunks to support themselves and grow tall enough to reach the sun's light. Jerry Franklin studies old-growth forests dominated by coniferous trees. His years of research have changed our understanding of how trees work.
It's a big old Douglas fir tree here. This tree is about 6 feet in diameter, probably around 250 feet tall, and it's probably about 500 years old. A living tree like this provides a lot of different functions in the forest. It provides a home for a lot of different kinds of organisms. It's doing a lot of productivity, it's doing a lot of photosynthesis, so it's a source of energy for the ecosystem.
Like all plants, trees require sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water to survive. With these ingredients, they make the food they need and provide the oxygen we all use to breathe. By removing carbon dioxide, they replenish the Earth's atmosphere and give us fresh air.
There isn't any ecosystem in the whole world that stores more carbon than our northwestern coniferous forests. They're just giant storehouses of the stuff in the trees, in the logs, in the forest floor, and down in the soil.
Leaves collect energy from the sun and use it to make sugars that get transported throughout the tree for nutrition. Like sponges, the roots soak up water that moves through the trunk into branches and leaves. Excess water is released through the leaves back into the air.
One of the interesting things about the big old tree is, of course, eventually it dies. And what we find is that a tree, when it dies in one of these ecosystems, probably has as many functions to fulfill in the dead form as it did in the live form.
Fallen logs decompose and gradually return their nutrients to the soil, allowing other plants to thrive. It's a long and productive cycle of life. Nowhere is the diversity of the plant kingdom more evident than in the world's tropical rainforests. They support nearly half the total number of plant species on Earth. Plants thrive here because the conditions for life are so ideal. The climate is wet, the temperature is warm, and the sun provides constant energy. Rainforests grow in 4 layers. The tallest plants are the emergents, giant trees that break through the canopy to get the sunlight they need. Trees grow rapidly throughout the rainforest and form a dense canopy of leaves and branches. They gather energy from the sun far above the ground. Most of the food for plant-eating animals grows within this canopy layer. Beneath it, the understory is a cooler place with limited sunlight. But smaller trees, ferns, and vines manage to survive here. With so little light, plants find it tough to thrive on the forest floor. Instead, decaying plants and their parts send nutrients back to the soil. Each layer of the rainforest is packed with plants that offer resources that eventually reach us at home. Some of the most surprising are medicines that fight illness and disease. Anthropologist Glenn Shepard traveled to the Manu Biosphere Reserve in Peru to search for medicinal plants. For nearly 2 years, he lived among the Machugenga people to learn about the treatments they use. This tribesman tells Glenn that the sap from this fern helps heal deep wounds, and he believes the leaves of a nearby tree provide a cure for snakebite.
The Machiginga have knowledge of at least 300 or 400 medicinal plants that I've collected so far. 25% of all Western pharmaceutical drugs are derived from compounds first discovered in the rainforest. And yet, by the same token, only 1% of all rainforest plants have been studied. The chances are very high that we could find cures for all kinds of different diseases in the rainforest.
Traditional medicines used by the Machigenga effectively treat their most common illnesses. Glenn fears that if the knowledge of these people is not passed along, valuable information about these plants could be lost forever. He packs up samples to study back home.
There's a whole chemical and evolutionary universe right here, just above our heads in all these trees, and we know almost nothing about it. And it's my job to try and unlock these secrets, and no one knows the answers better than people like the Machiginga.
Meet the largest of the world's terrestrial predators, polar bears and Kodiak brown bears. Polar bears are among the few mammals living in the Arctic, and they're well dressed for the weather. Along with a thick layer of body fat, their water-repellent coats insulate them from the cold air and water. Transparent hairs have a hollow core, allowing sunlight to warm up the bear's black skin. Polar bear fur has no white pigment. The reflection of the sun makes the bears look white. Polar bears generally live near open water, where they hunt for their steady diet of ringed and bearded seals. The animals smell food as far as 100 miles away, and find seals denning under 3 feet of snow. Swimming for a meal is no problem for polar bears. Powerful forepaws and webbing between their toes work like paddles. In fact, polar bears spend so much time in the water, they're officially classified as marine mammals in some countries. Polar bears typically give birth to twins. The cubs live on their mother's high-fat milk, while she fasts in the den through the winter. In spring, the bear family makes short trips from the den, while the cubs adjust to the outside temperatures. Then, they make their way to the sea. Cubs stay with their mother for 2 years before heading out on their own. These big cubs are approaching independence. Kodiak bear cubs stay with their mother for 3 years before moving on to a life spent largely alone on a refuge in Kodiak Island, Alaska. Full-grown Kodiak bears, the largest of all brown bears, tolerate one another's company only during mating season and salmon season. The bears rely on the annual salmon feast to build fat for the rest of the year. When the fish are thick, the bears get picky. Some prefer the skin, others go for the roe. Fox and other scavengers are happy to eat the leftovers. Neither Kodiak bears nor polar bears are endangered. Polar bears number somewhere between 20,000 to 40,000 in the wild. About 3,000 Kodiaks rule their Alaskan island. These majestic predators have no natural enemies. And while both are still hunted by man, laws and the remote locations they've claimed as kingdoms offer some protection.